Make predictions. Everyone says I'm predicting this and that. All I'm doing is reading the value of a particular model that I have that continually tracks the price over its entire history. Bitcoin is now probably within its last 100x, possibly last 10x, 10x to 100x. And we've had like something like tens of thousand X to get to this point. And so like I now think of Bitcoin as money, as hard money. If you were talking in the crypto sense, it's the equivalent of the US dollar without the fiat crap, but it's where you'll pack your store of value. If you break down markets, markets happen on exchanges where people buy and sell. And there's two types of exchanges. One's for speculators, which trade on leverage. They usually trade these things called futures markets. They don't actually buy and sell the underlying asset. They just trade paper contracts, betting on the price going up and down, right? That's one kind of trader. And then you've got these markets that actually buy and sell the underlying. These are the spot exchanges. So the spot exchanges are a little bit more legitimate because this is where people come to buy and sell the asset. But even in those exchanges, people can buy, sell, and mess with the volume. And that stuff you can't really see because it's behind the wall of the exchange. They only give you price and volume data. But then there's this other thing, which is once you've bought your coins, you move it onto your self-custody wallet. A decent portion of investors move it into their wallet. Once they've done that, we see everything on the blockchain. And so one of the ways in which I measure demand and supply, and ultimately a lot of the things I do on chain is grappling with like, what is the real demand and supply between investors? It's really simple. I call it supply shock. It's how many coins can't you get if you want to buy versus the coins that you can get. So, you know, as the amount of coins grow that in the supply that aren't selling, I'm not selling, versus the people that are super speculative and they'll sell it at any price if they think the price is going to go down. So you run that ratio, and there's many ways you can go who's not selling versus selling, right? There's many views into that lens. And one of the lenses that Glassnode use, which is the provider of data I use mostly, they look at who are long-term holders based on their coins not moving for 5 months. So anyone who's held their coins for more than 5 months, those coins aren't moving. They haven't moved in 5 months. They're probably not going to move. You're not probably going to be able to buy those coins. Whereas any coin that's been circulating within the shorter time frame, there's a fair chance you can get those coins because they'll be moving between hands, you know. And so you run that ratio, and because it's a very long term, it takes 155 days for a coin to age into from short term to long term. It's a very smooth graph, and it's very macro. It's very sure, right? It's very like once a coin's reached 5 months of age, it's unlikely to change its behavior in a volatile way. And so when you run the supply shock on that, you'll see like the demand, essentially a supply shock going up to these peaks, and those peaks coincide with mass accumulation by these long-term investors, and they also coincide with all the historical bottoms where a floor was put on the price by long-term investors because they keep accumulating, and anyone who's selling, they buy, and it keeps the price at the bottom. And eventually, once it dries out, no one's selling, the selling's exhausted, price moves up. And so we were in one of these accumulations. The last one ended at October last year. We had a decent spell of many months where we're at peak accumulation by these long-term holders, and then the price started to run up. It looks like we've got another at least a month or two to get to fully accumulating. Based on historically, it takes this amount of time, and then after that, with high probability, you can say, well, once they're accumulated, then the price can run up because all the coins have taken off the market. and then it takes months for that to run up, right? And so like you work out the time frames, it's like, man, we're going to blow past this year and we're going to keep running up. And every bull market in the history of Bitcoin tends to peter out around the Christmas time of the year following the halvening, which we had. So it's a fair chance that we'll not go into what we think, which is a traditional, Bitcoin bear market, which generally is a huge retrace of maybe 80% of its value. And it also takes about 9 months to a year to shake out. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think now, judging from the maturity of this market and the impacts of the different parts of the demand and supply from different parts of the ecosystem, we're breaking out of this 4-year cycle, which was really contingent on, the network being programmed to have its kind of newly mined coins every 4 years. Like that drop in the new coins being dumped onto the market is now quite insignificant. And I think that taking that all into account and what I'm seeing on chain, I don't think we're going to have like what we see these normal 4-year cycles again. I think I'm calling this the last cycle, and people think that's very somber and bearish, but no, I mean, like, this thing does a drunk walk of ups and downs, trending upwards as it finds its adoption for indefinite amounts of time. These 4-year cycles are gone. That's what I think might be happening, which is, I think, is a big revelation, because that's against the expectation of what the majority think. So we'll see if that plays out. But if you take into the context of this other on-chain data we have, it means that we're not going to have a market top, like a traditional cyclic market top, where everything goes into a mania phase and everything runs up, and then we have a blow off top and we come back down. We have this drunken walk. It's like the S&P 500. It just keeps wandering upwards. So it can be in the midline, and so the price could be anything between two models that I have, if they hold. Models are models, they sometimes break. So the upper bound is like 200,000 plus, right? And then there's the lower bound, which is, I think it's below the current price by significant amounts.
Wow.
But like the answer to this is that it means that let's not look at the upper bound anymore. Like, we're looking at the wrong thing. Everyone asked that question because at the end of this year is the expectation that's the top of this bull market and the end of this bullish cycle. If you remove the idea that we're going to have an end of this bull market like all the other cycles, and we do this drunken wander, then this model doesn't really matter too much. And the idea of what is our price end of this year doesn't matter too much, because people basically want to know when are they going to sell their coins and go to cash and wait out another year till this thing bottoms. And it's just interesting. It just means maybe you shouldn't be selling. Maybe like we should be like equity investors who just invest and wait for this thing to keep going up without trying to time this market. It's obviously worth timing the market if you're going to lose 80% of your value over the next year. But, we've just seen a pullback of, 50% pullback, and then it's recovered over 2 months. Like I can see a lot of these things happening, but that's not a bear market for Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. The bear market for Bitcoin is 80% and 6 to 12 months.